Okay, let's hit record. Okay, we are recording. Set this the right way. Okay, so show me your root beer. Let's see. Tell me what you got. It's okay. So here's my name for this little
Yeah.
communication, which is the root beer I am with Honey and her dad.
I like it.
The root beer I am with Honey and her dad. How's that?
The root beer I am.
With Honey and her dad.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole basic. Is we have to start with those two words I am. So I have
getting to the root of things. How about getting to the root of things? So the root beer I am getting to the root of things with Honey and her dad.
With beer. Yeah, okay. All right, so show me your root beer. What do you got today?
So I've got the Johnny Ryan here.
Now, if anybody's watching this, we should tell them that you're down in Carrollton, Texas.
Yep.
And I'm in Monterey, California. Okay, so this is Johnny Ryan. Tell us about Johnny Ryan.
Yeah, so it's from Niagara Falls in New York since 1935, so it's been around for a while.
Right, the family's been doing this all the way back to 1935. That's almost 100 years.
And it looks like it's got some French in here, so this might be very north. Well, Niagara Falls is north, right? So it might have some Canadian influences, maybe.
Oh, you think? Have you tasted it?
Not yet. I was waiting for you.
Okay, let's see you taste it. Tell us what it's about. Let's just start with your root beer.
It's really good. I really like it. It's very creamy.
It's root beer.
It tastes like root beer.
Yeah.
But it's creamy. It's nice and creamy. I like it a lot.
Any particular flavor to it?
Root beer.
Yeah, just root beer.
It's got vanilla. Vanilla. I could taste vanilla.
There you go. Okay, so now I've got, thanks to you, I have Gale's. Can you see that?
Yeah.
This is like a really great label.
It's not fun.
Gale's root beer. And Gale is this woman who lived in the United States. She's American.
Yeah.
Moved to England. And she's really a celebrated cook, chef. She makes a lot of videos, and I watched one of her videos this morning, actually.
Oh, that's fun.
And she's mostly a cook, but she got to England. She likes root beer, and there was no root beer around, so she invented it. And now this is really highly, I read some of the critics. They love this root beer. I mean, this is very, very popular root beer. So Gale did a good job. So I'm going to taste it before I pour it into some ice cream.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit with this. One of the things they talk about is the ginger that's in here, and the cinnamon. Ginger and cinnamon are the two prominent things. God, it's really good. It's like when you taste something like that, you go, why can't I have this all the time? You know, it's just delicious, incredibly delicious.
Ginger's good for you as well.
Very good. Good for my asthma, I found.
Oh.
For a lot of things. And I put ginger around, they always serve that with sushi. And I always reject it, but I got to stop rejecting it because it is really good for you, ginger is. And there's a lot of sugar in it, and that's really good for you. No,
natural sugars.
Yeah.
From the root.
So what's on your mind today? How are you doing, first of all? We don't have, now we're recording this, but we don't have to put anything that we don't want up for anybody else to watch.
Okay.
So this is between us.
I know I would have done my makeup had I known we're doing this profesh. I should have expected nothing less, but.
You look great. You look like you look a little bit, you know, you got a little color in your face. That's good.
I know. I'm gonna put some. What's up on? Just trying to keep the marathon going, right? Like, I think that's a big one where we've been through kind of the pandemic, and there's just been, like, between pandemic, social injustice, and the economy and jobs and all of that stuff has all kind of come, and it always just kind of feels like you wake up every day and it's like, oh, what's going to explode now, right? We've had the
Dust storm. Don't forget the dust
right.
storm.
Oh yeah, yesterday it was,
The
our
Florida
allergies
dust storm.
were out of control, and it was literally, there was dust everywhere.
Was it?
And so yeah.
Okay.
So I think right now it's just kind of steadfastness within the waves, I think, is kind of my focus. And um not letting, not being afraid of, like, well, what's next, right? Because it seems like everything's happening all at once. So um yeah, I think that's a big part of it. It's just kind of the stillness, right? The foundation, the unwavering part of it, despite everything that's coming through, not getting swept up into the social media and all of that stuff, and kind of staying, like, eye on the truth.
Yeah. There's yeah, social media can just put you into fear, and then if you really want to get into fear, go watch the news on television,
Within
or
seconds. I
or
mean,
get in. Or the only thing that people talk about anymore on Facebook is this, all the bad things that are happening. I mean, we've become so obsessed with it, And then one of the things I was thinking this morning as I woke up, I got into SpaceX and watched that first takeoff of the rocket ship to the space station, and
yeah,
I become a huge fan of Elon Musk,
yeah,
and I'm really excited about his batteries, because that's been his whole gist of everything is batteries and material part of it is, what he's really good at is using materials to get batteries that last a long time, that charge up really fast, last a long time.
yeah. It's the portable energy, right? Essentially.
Well, right. It's the electric car. It's our cell phones. It's taking the energy away from the grid and making us more independent more than anything. I mean, if we can, he's very much into solar, and I'm into it when it works. But I've seen a lot of waste, a lot of government waste because of it too.
Yeah.
But always, point is, I looked at that, and I looked at also his Hyperloop uh, uh, um, train that he's doing it for the Las Vegas Convention Center.
Right.
And I look at that, and I look at so many marvelous things that are happening in the world right now. Just if you just will kind of block out all the crap, and then look at SpaceX and look at the Hyperloop train. He's not the only one working on that.
Yeah.
There's also, if you want to really marvel at something, they are doing this the longest um, highway in northern Norway. That's usually you have to take this trip, and you go take a car for a little ways, get on a ferry, take a car a little ways, get on a ferry, and
Yeah.
this most phenomenal highway in the history of the world that's being built up there goes through tunnels, and they have floating bridges and all kinds of stuff.
Is that kind of like the channel, or no? Or
Well,
it
but
gets
this is
different as you
this is like
drive
a
it?
hundred and some odd miles long. So I mean, it's like, and there's a great video up on it, and showing the animations, using animation, so on. Point is, there's so many great things. Consciousness, for example, the study of consciousness, the scientists and what they're able to accomplish. Medicine on so many different levels has made such advancements. There's so many great things happening, and you look at the years that ahead, and you think, why are we emphasizing all this crap when there's so many great things happening in the world at the same time?
Yeah.
And it's funny how we as a human race just don't want that. We'd rather have shit than that other stuff. But for me, I'm trying to spend more of my time looking at all that than all the other crap.
Yeah.
I am concerned, And I get fear once in a while where I just want to scoop everybody up and go, we're out of here and
Right.
go to Scotland or wherever it
Yeah,
might be. But, we got to fight for our country too.
absolutely.
But
And it's really, go
there's
ahead.
great stuff happening.
There is. And I think that there's like, we had a really interesting time yesterday because one of Michael's close friends when he was in college passed away suddenly.
Oh,
And
I'm
so
sorry to hear
we
that.
originally were thinking about, okay, well, can he go down to Waco, which is where everybody's at, see all of his buds and, be part of that. And, um, I think at the end of the day, we kind of made this decision that like it's not worth the risk right now. There's
Right.
other opportunities. They're doing a big Halloween party, which is like their favorite thing. So things will hopefully be different. But we did watch the funeral online. We basically watched it on his phone, then Chromecasted that to the TV. And so we got to kind of participate, but it was very eerie watching everybody social distance with masks on and things like that. And to kind of, in those moments where you want to be surrounded by the people that you care about, knowing that you're not able to physically be there is a little, it was tough. It was tough. Um, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Sure.
So I think it's trying to figure out ways to transcend physical distances, right? Like and this is a completely inaccurate study, so I'm going to paraphrase it, but like the study isn't accurate, but they're talking about, I think the average human needs to be hugged like 6 times a day to maintain like that comfortable level of contact, right? And so it has effects on just chemicals and whatnot. And the idea of like, I was speaking with even my coworkers who I'm friends with, were like, I literally haven't hugged a stranger or even a friend that's like not my dog or my husband in like 3 months. And
Right.
that's so weird to me because I love doing that. I love having that energy exchange, right? And so I think that's really affected a lot of people too, is trying to figure out what that
Oh,
looks
yeah.
like.
Well, yeah. I think there's a lot of different ways to hug. Maybe the older you get, it changes for you too. But
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And if you can, it just makes you feel better when you can kind of say something nice to someone online or on the phone or whatever it may
Yeah.
be, or on Zoom. Uh, there is all of that, but I don't think we have to. I also, I was starting to say is I think the thing that's not being emphasized is exactly what you're talking about, which is it's really had an effect on depression and lack of hope and
Yeah.
sadness and all of those things. And that's, as the president had talked about that early on, is sometimes the cure could be worse than the disease. I think it's both those things. I think they have to pay more attention to what people are having to deal with.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that I wish we had more of in this country is diversity of voices. And I'm not talking about race or gender or anything like that. It's people who think different ways to go, hey, listen, we're not going to just listen to the medical professionals because the medical professionals are always going to be as conservative as possible. And then we're not going to just listen to the politicians because they're going to be like, they have their own viewpoint and their own agenda that they have to go through, right? It's bringing more people to the table who have different experiences to go, listen, this is the risk analysis, because essentially that's what it is. And to say if it's anything other than that, like, I think is naive, right? It's just like, talking about parents having to make decisions of whether or not their kids go back to sports.
Right.
Well, there's a risk with your kids staying at home without friends and being depressed. There's a risk with being sedentary and not being moving around, but there's also a risk to, potentially get sick and pass it on to somebody that it could potentially impact forever.
I think we have more diversity of voices today than we've ever had.
Yeah,
And that's because you and I can communicate instantly with each
that's
other.
true.
And I communicate with a whole bunch of people on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and those places. And I always say, if I think back and I go, where did I learn about that? I learned about that from somebody else, not from turning on the news, because I don't do that anymore. I used to do 24/7
Yeah.
uh, Fox, or when they were actually a news organization, CNN. None of those people make any sense. They're not delivering us news; they're delivering us propaganda. But I get the news. I get the news from other people. What is it like
But
in Seattle? You want to talk to one of your friends in Seattle. You want to know what it's like in Minneapolis? Talk to one of your friends in Minneapolis.
but I think one of the challenges with that, which is really, and I agree to a certain extent, but I think the interesting part of that is that, okay, I'm gonna talk to my friend in Seattle who's most likely gonna be like-minded to me because we're friends, right? And their experience, like let's say you had two people who are on the same block and they saw something, their experience, even on that one block, might be completely different, right? Somebody might have seen one thing that the other person didn't see, or because of their view in their past or their political leanings, they'll experience reality in a different way than somebody else who has a different background. And that's the part that is so hard, because I think that um, we're at least externally communicating on a large macro scale. People, you have 5 seconds to get your point across, and it's always going to be the most simplified answer, right? Because you can't have an argument in 5 seconds. You can only make a statement.
Yeah, well, people don't. I don't think we're in the mood to disagree with each other. I mean, the disagreements are really brutal, and it's sort
Oh,
of like,
yeah.
it's like I have my I have my opinions about things, and if you don't agree with me, I don't want to talk to you.
Well, it's not even that I want to talk to you. It's like, F you. You're a
Yeah,
bad person.
right.
Like, it's that point. I remember getting into with one of my friends when I
Or
was in
worse than
seventh grade.
being a bad person is being a stupid. You're stupid.
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah,
ignorant, you're stupid,
yeah.
you're horrible. I mean, I still remember um like getting into a really big argument with one of my friends when I was like in high school about some political thing that happened, and it came down to like we just got so angry at each other. We're like, we can't talk anymore for a little bit because it was
Right.
just so horrible. And
Right.
I feel like that is what's happening with grown ass adults, right? In high school, you're kind of, you have to learn and grow through that, and we definitely have through our relationship. But I mean, I saw it even in college, just kind of that fostering of you're with me or you're dumb.
Well, the thing is that exactly what you're talking about is why are we spending all of our time talking about politics, or talking about, the virus, or why are we talking about negative stuff all the time? We have, and when I talk about I'm talking about
Yeah,
because I really think the only way I can change anything is to change myself and to work on myself, and
yeah,
and to say to myself, uh, that's not where I want to put my emphasis. I don't want to put my emphasis 24/7 on whether the virus is they're reporting it right, or whether the virus is correct, or whether Trump, or whether this or whether that.
yeah,
I mean, when I can look at all the marvelous things that are out there, and is that, well, I'm cloistered behind closed doors, and I'm going nuts because I'm here behind closed doors with my computer and my laptop and my tablet and my high-speed Wi-Fi and all the different things that I can do. What if we were talking about where this was happening to us 100 years ago? You have to stay inside. What are you going to do? They don't deliver the newspaper now.
no,
Like, here I am in Hollywood, looking at the wall, hoping waiting for a call, hoping the wall won't fall in on me. It's like, look at all we have. Stop the crybaby stuff and stop thinking of ourselves as victims, and start being proactive about it. And stop spending all of our time worrying about all this other shit when there's so many great things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think we can ignore what's going on, and I don't think that I don't think
Mm-mm.
that's the point you're coming across either, because it's
No.
like you can't ignore it, and you have to be part of that. But um, I think it's hard because I think that there's a difference between crybaby and then also feeling and going through the emotions of the more it's not even mourning, but the mourning of what life was, and then moving through to gratitude and change and evolution, because I think that's the biggest thing. It's like um I know that I've been more grateful for pretty much everything that I went through, and it's so interesting to look back, like even when we were talking about USC and when I was there, just the gratitude now of, how much, because I remember those days were hard and they were a lot of work, but and I was grateful for them, but I don't think that I appreciate them now even much more, because now we're talking about people not being able to go back to school, or whether or not there'll be a
Right.
marching band
Right.
this year, and people who I got to do my 4 years and experience some amazing things. And so it definitely has brought another level of gratitude to, or just, I don't know, is gratitude even the right word? Because I think gratitude
Or
is,
appreciation.
yeah, appreciation, but I think it's like appreciation on a deep level of just in awe of the magic of it all, I think is more appropriate.
Well, Jesus said, render under Caesar the things of Caesar and God the things of God. And what I see right now is that we just sort of forgot the God part. And we're just playing on this level, which is the whole world is coming to an end because this is happening or that's happening or whatever. I'm not saying you don't deal with it. And if somebody confronts me on a Caesar level, I confront right back.
Yeah, you have
And
to. Yeah.
I try to be as prepared for that as I possibly can. But I also, in the back of my mind, or I have this little thing over the top of me somewhere, side of me, wherever it is, that says, this is really just a play, and
It's a
it's
smoke and
yeah,
mirrors.
yeah, it's
I
right, it's smoke and mirrors. But so don't take it too seriously. And I think too many people have forgotten the God part and think that it's the whole world, and it's not.
do you feel like when do you feel like we forgot the God part? Because I feel like you maybe had some rumblings of that back when you were in the ministry,
Yeah,
though.
right,
Like that part
right.
was gone. It was not a recent thing. It's
That's
not,
no.
because I think that, even just, and this is my, initial kind of research into it. It's like the word of God and how it's been transcribed and how it's been presented by humans, by mortals, right? Has it's innately human in some of its ways, right? Like there's not much you can, it's not like it's the direct word of God without any filter or prejudice
Oh,
or,
I think the church has failed us tremendously.
yeah,
I think the church became religion, and
yeah,
that's the word right there. I may write this at some point, but there was in 1970 we got a call, and the people were putting together Earth Day, first Earth Day. They had this idea for a day once a year we'd set aside April 22nd, 1970, for Earth Day, and they needed our help promoting it because I was doing the publication, and I was working with Buzz Bennett and Bobby
yeah,
Ocean, Rich Brother Robin, and then Henry Gibson, who was on Laugh-In. He was a comedian on Laugh-In, was very involved. And
yeah,
so I picked Henry up at his house in Malibu, and we drove down to San Diego, and we produced a radio show that was on hundreds of radio stations. Radio had a huge impact on the whole concept of Earth Day, of getting it started, and everybody
yeah,
was thrilled and the whole thing. Then, and so we were into it. I was into, don't throw trash out on the beach. Come on, man. And let's make cars better so that
yeah,
we're not totally smogged in here and all those things. But environmentalists took over. And one of the things they found, a lot of people found, was, you could make money on this. I could sell a product that will my logo on it that has a bag that you can use, a special bag you can use to pick all the trash up or whatever it might be. And
Yeah.
then it became big business, big business, big business. And the next thing you know, uh, it became a religion. It wasn't about the environment anymore. It was
Yeah.
about the whole concept of the environment. You go, well, what's the environment? You go, it doesn't make any sense what you're talking about. You have these you have these solar panels that work, and you want them to work in Seattle where the sun never shines or whatever it may be. I
Yeah.
mean, electric cars that will only go 5 miles, and you have to charge them again, and it takes 2 hours to charge them. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then it's like, if you don't believe in global warming, then you should go to prison for not. I mean, now that's religion. And the same thing
Yeah.
happened with the church, which is, I want reality. And that did happen to me when I was a kid. Was washed in the blood of the Lamb. I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
Or I have you been saved? I heard it all my life, and yeah, I've been saved. And then it's like, I really don't know what they're talking about.
Do I save? Absolutely. After every paper I
All
write.
that stuff. So, but at the same time, I had to take that away from myself. I had to say, this is bullshit. The
But
church is bullshit.
when did you first start to think about that? What do
Um,
you think?
I think I probably was kind of intuitively thinking about it along the way, because I had to do double duty, because the first time I went before the Oklahoma State Board and the Methodist Church to be approved as a supply pastor, they called it, I was only 14 years old.
Wow.
And I had to study it, and I had to be ready to answer a lot of questions. And there was, when I was getting ready to answer those questions, they gave us these books that you had to read and you had to study. And from those books, it was, going to be able to answer the questions. It became a, what do I think? Or what do you want to hear? I think that had an impact on me at that point. It was like, I, I felt like I was doing the boogie, the religion boogie, you know, doing the
Yeah.
dance, so that, and lying to them about how I felt.
Hmm.
And they didn't approve me the first year, but they did when I was 15. I got approved because I'd taken a year to be able to do the dance really well. But it
Do
was
you
just
feel like
bullshit.
do you feel like at that time you knew that it was bullshit, or do you feel like you
Oh no,
were
I
doing
knew.
the best you could? You
No,
did?
I knew, and I didn't feel good about myself, that I would think one way and have to say something completely different for the church to accept me, because I wanted to do that. And
Because you
so
wanted to be accepted by, I mean, you at that point you wanted to be
I wanted
accepted by the
this. Oh
church?
yeah, but I was going to be, ordained as a pastor, and that was like the family tradition. My brother
Yeah.
Joe, my brother George, my dad. That was like, whoa, here we all are. We got the family of pastors. My dad was
Yeah.
really proud of it, and I wanted him to be proud.
Yeah.
That wasn't the only reason. I was sort of grown up with the idea that that was my life. That's what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of other things that were happening at the same time, so I hadn't totally committed to it. One was rock and roll, and the other was baseball.
Yeah.
Uh, but I really felt like a hypocrite. I felt like a bullshit artist.
Mm.
Uh, and and so the day that I got um, I got approved, and then after I got out of high school, I wound up with my first church in
Mm.
Canute, Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and I'm in the parsonage, and I get a call from the district superintendent, they have Oklahoma Conference. It's all these different districts, and the district superintendent's like the the guy that you deal with the most, and he answers to the bishop. That's the way the hierarchy works in the church. And he called screaming at me after my first month because I hadn't raised enough money for world service, they call it.
Wow.
And I got reamed by this guy who had been so sweet and so nice until it came down to him basically saying to me, okay, now that you're in this place of responsibility, I want you to understand one thing. It's all about the money.
Did he say that, or was that
No, but he was saying it to me.
thinly veiled?
You get in there, and just hammering me like, and it was like, I hung up and went, I don't want to be this. Fuck this. This is all
Yeah.
about the money. I even knew this at 17 years old.
Wow.
I just graduated from high school. I hadn't turned 18 yet.
And how
So,
long were you in the ministry after that moment?
well, I had pastored my first church as a senior in high school, Harmony Methodist Church. Then I was at Canute for a year. Canute, it was a beautiful church, and I was doing rock and roll radio every day too, and going to school full time. Busy, busy, busy. And then when I was a sophomore, I was in Dustin for a year, so that's 2 years. And then I went to full time in Tulsa. I left the church completely. Did 6 months in Tulsa at 6 months or 9 months at KFMJ in Tulsa. Came back to Henrietta, and they wanted me to be the assistant pastor at this big church in Henrietta. And so I took that, and that was mostly for money. The radio station wasn't paying all that much.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and did mornings and programmed the station, they had the bishop called my dad and said, there's an opening. They desperately need an assistant pastor for this six church circuit in outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I did that for a year, and that was it. I didn't do it anymore. I didn't want to do it, and I was making enough money in sorry, in radio to be able to do that.
During that time, did you ever think about potentially combining church and radio together? And if so, why didn't that take off?
Yeah, I did. But I didn't want to. I was doing rock and roll. I didn't want to become a radio pastor.
Got it.
Because I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about.
Yeah.
I really didn't have. I didn't have a message. I knew I had a message of some, which is, I did intuitively believe that we need to look at the world positively. Mm. We needed to be positive, that God was there and God was real. I never lost faith that there wasn't a God somewhere, but I didn't believe in less and less with the church God, which was this big guy in the sky with the long hair and beard coming out of the clouds. It just never made any sense to me at all. It's like, and so the whole church thing, but it changed for me.
Yeah.
It changed for me when I found Joseph Murphy, for one.
Yeah.
And he was very much a Christian Jesus basis to what Joseph Murphy talked about.
Yeah.
And then I went to see and started reading, and then finally got to see him in person in Ojai, J. Krishnamurti. Mm-hmm. And then I met Michael Nesmith, and Michael and I became friends, and he was very much into Christian Science. So those things all kind of combined, and then I began to, it all woke up, but it really got real when I really plunged myself into totally Joseph Murphy, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, totally believing that that you and your Father are one, and that you're not a victim, and you can move mountains. Jesus said you can move mountains if you have the faith of a grain of mustard seed. And so I had this newsletter, and I had done it when I had a promotion for Roulette in New York, and it kind of grown and people liked it. And I had this dream and walked away from the record business to do this newsletter full time. And I had this dream, if I figured it out, if I had 100 subscribers, or even I think 300 was my goal, that I would that I could make a living doing that. And that's what I wanted to do, is writing this newsletter for the radio music business.
And why
And
is that? Like, what was so the dream was obviously doing newsletter, but to what end? Like, what impact did you want that newsletter to have?
it was music, and it was, I loved music. I loved rock and roll, loved the new hits, loved the idea of radio, and all the fascinating creative things that it did. And those two things combined together. And I just kind of found a niche that people went where before you wouldn't be able to walk into a room or anything, who went, come on in here. You're the guy with that newsletter.
Yeah.
And so it really gave me a place in the business, in the industry, more than anything else. But I also was still a pastor. I want to make that point. And
Yeah.
what happened was, by using Murphy, by not allowing any negative thoughts, I mean, I was really plunged into following him to the T, that I wound up counting pennies at Christmas time to see what I could buy for Joe Dale and Gidget, to being in New York on 57th and Broadway with 3,000 subscribers, paying $130 a piece, and people lined up outside my door, and it exploded. Because what happens when God answers your prayer, God really answers your prayer. You can't dream of what you get. And when that happened to me, when it worked, it was like, well, I don't care about anything else but this. My God, how did that happen?
Do you
That's
remember?
unbelievable. That
Do you
really
remember
worked.
when you realized that? Do you remember when you realized that? Like that, because I'm sure that you're doing the work, you're making it happen, then you go, oh my God,
Mm.
everything that I've been reading worked.
No, it exploded one day.
Yeah.
When it happened from one day to the next. I walked into my office, and the phone was ringing. I picked it up. It's Capitol Records, it's RCA Records, it's Warner Brothers Records, it's this radio company with 10 subscribers. And one right after another. I did 300 subscribers in a day, all paying me $130 a month, or $130 a year, but that was a lot of money in those days.
Yeah.
John Wayne said, I wanted to meet the guy who gets $130 a year for this piece of shit magazine. That's what John Wayne said.
Classy guy.
Yeah, always wonderful guy. But so it was that was the emphasis. And from that point on, but I never stopped. I always, what happened when I was at Pulsar Records, so I went from Roulette to Rama Rama in LA and to Pulsar. But when I was there, the newsletter really grown, and I was sending it out to 1,000 radio stations every week. So it really had an impact. And the Paul McCartney thing, when I got a call one day from a guy by the name of Jeff Kay at WKBW in Buffalo. He called me up and he said, do you know anything about Paul McCartney being dead? And I said, oh my God, no. And he said, well, I was driving home last night, my mother's house, and I was driving back to Buffalo, and I heard this kid on the radio on a college radio station. He believes that Paul McCartney's dead, and the Beatles have been trying to tell us that Paul McCartney was dead. And I said, wow. And he gave me 3 or 4 things. I said, wow, that's amazing. I said, have you talked to anybody else about this? And he said, no, Bob Green, who was at WKNR in Detroit. So I called Bob, and he gave me 3 or 4 more tips. And then I called, I'm talking to program directors all day, every day, one right after another at radio stations all over the country. And I'm saying, do you know anything about Paul McCartney being dead? So I watched this whole thing unfold. And then that weekend, by now, everybody calls me back up and they go, hey, I just listened to this album and they played it backwards. And it says, Paul is dead, Paul is dead, and all that stuff. And it's like amazing. You couldn't ignore this story. So I put out a big news story on it in Break, I think we called it at that time, and sent it out to 1,000 radio stations. And then it's Friday afternoon, exhausted. It's been a really tough week. And by that time, I had the news had just kind of exploded everywhere. And I had been called by all three networks, radio networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, and done interviews with these people and the whole thing. So I've just come home and lay down in bed and turn on television. Well, in those days, Walter Cronkite was everything. He was the news.
Yeah.
And I turned it on and I thought, oh, I'll check the news. And he starts off funny. And he goes, the rumor that Paul McCartney is dead. It was his lead story. And I saw, my God, this started with this call from Jeff K at WKBW. Look at this. Look at the power. Look at what we could do together. I have to do this full time. I can't be in the record business. I have to do this newsletter. So ultimately, I never stopped the spiritual message throughout that magazine. I took a lot of crap for it a lot of times. But I always said there's another reason besides ratings and selling advertising to do what you're doing, because you're having an effect on people. If we could together, if the media together would throw these positive vibes out to everyone on a daily basis, on your morning show, that attitude, that spiritual basis, the world, it will change the world, so.
Yeah, well, you and I had talked at one point when I was in college, I think, about what the word radio means, which is the energy of God or the light of God, right?
Right. Ra is energy. Do is God, God's energy.
Yeah. And so maybe you were always a pastor and you never stopped being a pastor. It's just, you just went directly to the source.
Right. I didn't, that I still am. But I'm also a person, a human being who likes, who gets down into Caesar's world too. So I can have a big argument with you about Bush or Clinton or, whoever it is and so on, as if it's real.
Yeah.
But I know better. I mean, all the world's a stage and all the men and women in it merely players. So I know that's where it is.
Yeah.
Neville Goddard really has had a big effect on me. And he and Joseph Murphy, I didn't know about him for years, just only until the last couple of years. But Neville Goddard's really had a big effect on me too. And they were peers. And Reverend Ike now, they were all about the same time.
What do you think the biggest impact that Neville Goddard has had on you has been?
God is your imagination. Your imagination is God.
And how is that different from what you learned from Joseph Murphy?
It was basically the same thing, just said a different way. Murphy was saying, if you will believe, if you are positive. Yeah. And so it's the idea of belief. But Neville had more of a process where he says, okay, close your eyes, see yourself there where you want to be. Feeling is the answer. And so you have to feel it. And you can make it happen. And it's the law of attraction. It's the law of, it's those kind of things all put together.
It was so interesting because, when you talk about faith, I mean, and maybe there's a million ways to disagree with what I'm about to say, but it's always seemed like steadfastness, you're just kind of quiet and you're not emotional and you're just kind of even-handed, even keeled. But it seems like, with Joseph Murphy and even more with Neville, and then even some of the Summer McStravick, who I listen to a bunch, that emotion is the gasoline. It's the thing that makes things work. It's what connects it. It's about the feeling. And I think that there's this idea of not having emotions is positive when really it's dampening your superpowers, essentially, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it's feeling is the truth. You can intellectualize all day and you can say, well, I really believe God's going to take care of us and everything else. Oh shit, what's that, a tornado's coming? What am I going to do? It's like, wait a minute. I thought you said you were taken care of. So it's how you feel. Feeling is the truth. And so getting a hold of that is the constant game. It's a constant game, which is, I know God is going to take care. I know God is loving, first of all. I know that he is part of me. It is part of me. Use whatever pronoun you want to use.
Yeah.
But I feel like shit. And so the question is, well, stop feeling like shit, because God's going to take care of you.
Yeah.
So stop it. You go, oh, you're right. I feel better now. You know, and so that's always the battle, which is to remember who you are.
Right.
In the midst of turmoil. I mean,
Yeah.
it's always the question is, but also use the power, which is, man, I'm having this long conversation and with somebody who's a client or somebody who's going to cancel, and I'm trying to convince him not to cancel, and he's such a fucking asshole. And I'm going, so, okay, God, I know you'll take care of it. But the thing is, you really use the power, which is, I'm going to see this solved. I know this is going to be okay, and I'm going to see it solved.
I'm going to feel it solved.
I'm going to feel it solved. Right. And and then it's like, yeah, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't work. You go, no, it works this time.
Yeah.
I'm not letting, get thee behind me, Satan. I'm not going to let you do this to me. And so that's always seemed to be the battle at the same time. I'm pretty firm in the way I look at it all. It's just
I think
implementing it.
The interesting thing, I think, sometimes is that the way that it's solved is not how you saw it, but maybe it was how you felt it. And so therefore, I think people sometimes think that it failed, right? Because, and this is something I think you've imparted in us since I was probably born, is the idea that it doesn't necessarily have to work out the way that we want it to, but it will work out, right? So like,
right.
Thank God I didn't get into Stanford, right? Like, thank God I didn't do this, right? It's and that could have been a moment of just, oh, everything's over, and God, why didn't you listen to me? But I think that's a lot easier for me to wrap my head around,
Yeah, absolutely, because you have to have this faith. First of all, I and my Father are one, but I am not God. God is part of me, and I am a manifestation of God. That's why I was talking about the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Somebody said, I can't remember who it was, but somebody famous said, my whole theology, everything I believe, is wrapped in two words: the beginning of the Lord's Prayer, which is our Father, which is, I am my Father. I'm part of my Father. God made me in his own image, and I am his son. I am his manifestation. And so if you remember those two words, our Father, that says so much in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And so when we are the manifestation, we're not God. And sometimes we're not even close. We've forgotten this totally. And that's what I was saying before, is I think so much of this country now has forgotten that there is a God here. Now, if you sit down and intellectualize it and have a discussion, really examine it, you're going to come up with it. You're going to say, oh, yeah, well, I do believe. So, you can be as atheistic as you want to. And there are a lot of people that are very prideful. I don't believe in that shit. But if you really examine it, you will come up with the answer: there is a God. And if you examine it further, you'll realize that you and your Father are one. And so how many times, exactly what you're talking about, where I've rejected something, I've imagined it, I've felt it, etc. You go, yeah, but also the other day you said such and such. So you're giving me mixed messages here. The subconscious mind is always working, for the good of those that love the Lord
Yeah.
or love the law. I like to use the word law instead of the Lord. How does it work? There is a
Yeah.
law here. And so it's amazing. It's absolutely miraculous how your subconscious mind winds up working things out for you, despite your own, objections about it all.
Right.
On one hand, and then change again, and so on. But it does. It always works out. Divine love always has met and always will meet every human need is a real important line for me.
Yeah.
So.
So how would you, so one of the things that there's many phrases from my childhood that have stuck in my head. And one of them is practice, practice, practice. Whether it's baseball, clarinet, religion,
Right.
it's practice, practice, practice. Those three repetitive words. How would you define the difference between practicing and discipline to religion? How would you define the differences? Because there's the argument that, well, if you are
you mean the spirituality?
yeah, I mean, if you're devoted and you go to church every single Sunday and that is a practice, how do you differentiate
That's
that
not
between?
a practice. That's going to church every Sunday, but that's not a practice. A practice is really seriously working on the idea of spirituality. Going to church on Sunday is a habit that people think that they get some sort of points in God's heaven for that. For going,
Yeah.
you get nothing for it. If it doesn't have an effect on you, it doesn't break. You're not able to walk away and go on Tuesday, oh, thank God I heard that thing in church on Sunday. Now I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
Putting it into practice. What you have, and that's what we were just talking about, which is I have this knowledge, this belief that I and my Father are one, and this guy's being an asshole to me. I'm going to kick his ass.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. What happened to love your neighbor as yourself? And
Yeah.
so you forget God, constantly forgetting God, constantly forgetting your connection with God, which is okay. You're totally forgiven instantly.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it, but you do have to suffer the consequences on the Caesar level, and you should, it'd be better not to have to do that. So practice, one of my favorite words is practice. When doctors or lawyers say, oh, it's my law practice or my doctor practice, they go, I'd rather you weren't practicing on me, which is one way of using that word, but that's not really the word, which is that I'm always working at my faith, always working at not forgetting God. That's the key. Always you can't do the boogie with God. You can't bullshit God. So it's got to be real stuff. And when I say God, I'm talking about the God within me.
So
practice.
What do you think happens when we die?
I think it's what Neville said was really brought me home, which is I think it's like walking through a door into the next room. Yeah. I think we continue on another level in another universe. I think that if I say I and my Father are one,
yeah,
I am God, and then I die and I wake up and I go, here I am again on the throne. And then I go, well, do you think you're going to see your friends again? If I want to, I'm God, I'll, I mean, it's not like I have any limitations to this.
Yeah.
So if at the basis of my Father, our Father,
mm-hmm.
is the belief that our Father is a Father of love.
Yeah.
And all evidence I can see through 77 years, almost 78, is that God is a God of love, that God is taking care of me. marvelous miracles. I could sit down and go the top 10 miracles of my life, but marvelous miracles of my life. First of all, that I'm sitting here talking to you when a lot of my friends have moved on into the next room.
Yeah.
And so I believe that God is a God of love. And if it's like, well, yeah, I'm a God of love, but when you die, you're out of here.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I
If
don't
you don't
believe
have
that.
enough points, you're done.
Or that you just, the way the system works is dust to death, see you later. You're not going to survive. You're just going to, this is it. This is all there is, and you're gone.
Yeah.
And I think, well, that's fuck you, man. That's not much of a God of love, if you ask me.
Yeah. So
I don't want that to happen to me.
how do you define love in terms of God? Like, if God of love, what does that mean? I mean, obviously it's not, what is it, agape? Is it, I know there's different types of love.
Uh, I think there's only one kind of love. And I think that love is if I can sit in your shoes, if I can sit where you are, if I can feel like you feel,
Yeah.
if I can really empathize with you 100%, if I become one with you, and that's with another person, or that's with a flower,
Yeah.
or that's with a beautiful sunset. If I am so, if there is no time and space between us, me and the object, me and the person, whatever it may be. And so when I say God loves me, God knows everything about me, forgives all my moments of staying in the Caesar world too long, and I don't have to make any excuses because I'm loved completely.
Yeah.
And so that to me, that's what it means. God is love. And that's when they say God is love, that means there's no separation between me and the whole universe. You know? So for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. That's the
Yeah.
end of the Lord's Prayer, is what I was talking about. I've been doing a lot of reading of the lines in the Lord's Prayer, which I get a lot from. So, what do you
Yeah,
think?
absolutely.
What do you think, honey?
About all of this?
You sitting there preaching away.
No, I mean, it's good. That's why I'm asking questions, because I'm curious. I think, I'm still learning. I'm far behind in terms of experience and thoughts on this, but
Well, I can't. I mean, the only thing that experience does for you is if you want to look back and go at all the times when you thought all hope was lost,
yeah,
and it wasn't.
yeah,
I can name those time and time and time and time again.
yeah,
So that's what experience does for
it's evidence.
you. And there's just no reason to bullshit. There's no reason to uh, act like you're something you're not, or to lose meaning and put the uniform on with all the patches and everything else,
Yeah,
and go sit with the band at UCLA or at USC and have saying to yourself, I really do love UCLA more than I love USC. I mean, don't put the uniform on and be a hypocrite,
yeah,
and that's too much of the time we lose the meaning of it all. And so that's bullshit. What's the real story here? And that's part of what life is so great. Why it's so great is like, trying to figure it out on a daily basis.
yeah.
It's the game.
I mean, but it doesn't mean, as far as God's concerned, it doesn't matter whether you're a hypocrite or not.
Nope. Or a criminal or a murderer or anything else.
So then if God doesn't care, then why not be those things?
because that it doesn't work out. It's like saying, well, if life is eternal, why not just shoot yourself? You know, it's like, well, okay, but you're not getting out of here.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to continue. I mean, do you, if that's what the kind of world you want to live in, and kind of karma, because karma is real. I mean, you will suffer when you
Yeah.
go out and put negativity out there. You're not going to let things aren't going to work out, because that's not the way the world works.
It's Newton's third law, right? Every action has, I mean, I know it's physics, but like every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Isn't that essentially what karma is?
Right, on Caesar's, yeah, on Caesar's, in Caesar's world, that's the way it
Yeah.
works. And so love, Jesus kept saying to us, okay, here's how it works. Okay, love your neighbor as yourself. It'll work out better for you if you do. You know, that's all Jesus was. He wasn't religious in any shape or form. All he was a great physician who was trying to heal uh, a world that was completely off base, which was basically, here's how it works. Here's how it's
Yeah.
going to work out for you. Here are the laws that you need to know so that you can have the happiest life. That's he was a physics major, you know. He was.
Physics of love, pretty much, right?
Right, or reality of reality. You know, it's not. He wasn't. I mean, he was like how it all works, consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, so. But okay.
This was
What else?
cool.
Yeah, it's great for me too. I mean, so I don't believe that we have to worry. I mean, um, I believe that God put President Trump in office, and
Okay.
as an outsider, I think that all we're going through right now, I really hope that he's reelected president, because I think we need an outsider in office, and the alternative is a disaster, because the guy is totally the antithesis of an outsider. He's like the ultimate insider. Uh, I think what we've been going through is really maybe a spiritual upheaval.
Yep.
I got to take a break. Can we take a break?
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Go ahead, Nick. Yes. What? What? Got cherry, cookie, fauna, flora. Love it. We got big. We got. Yeah, I think. Okay. So. We'll work on it. Go back in. I decided to take a break as well.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I'm here now.
I'm going to go take a treatment here in a few minutes. I think I'm getting some sinus stuff going on. Claritin. I started taking Claritin again.
Yeah, I feel like that dust storm has kind of gotten stuff out in the air.
Yeah. Are you taking something for that Claritin? Something like that?
I do the nose spray,
Oh yeah.
and then I take Singular at night.
Oh, that's good. So the
Yeah.
bottom, what to finish up what we were talking about is that I really do believe that God is a God of love, and everything's going to be taken care of. Everything's going to be fine. One of the things you and I have shared over the years was a saying, "Only good can come from this," and I think that's what we have to keep at the top of mind is
Yep.
that only good can come from this. Whatever we have to deal with, that's going to be the bottom line because we have a God of love that's taking care of us.
Yeah. I really feel like we're in a car, like, and we've been driving 90 miles an hour this way, and basically they're like, no, if you go this way, you're gonna drive off a cliff. So there's been some course correction. We've overcorrected, and then we're gonna have to find a new direction. It just feels that way, where it's just kind of there's almost gonna be like a leap. There's gonna be a leap forward for humanity because of this.
Right. Well, I have no idea how it's all going to turn out, but I know that only good can come from this. So,
Yeah.
that,
Everything is always working towards the greatest possible outcome.
right. And this probably needed to happen. I think
Yeah.
that for the country and for the world. Buzz used to say when he'd go into a radio station, the first thing he needed to do is give the station an enema. And so he would just fire everybody, change formats, completely start from scratch. And that's kind of the way what we are going through in this country right now is that.
It's a giant enema. I love it.
Giant enema. It's going on. So, I think that's happening. And so we have to have that faith.
Yeah.
And then so one of the things I like to think about, I go, if I'm wrong about all this, if I'm completely wrong about this, I won't fucking know the difference. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I won't be saying, damn, there isn't eternal life, is there? My mistake.
No, that's true.
Oops. Yeah, can't lose. I can't lose in any way. I won't look back and go, damn it, I wish I'd known. No, that won't happen. So I prefer the one we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it seems like the logical. That's the most important thing. It just everything I could see and learn around me, that seems to be the way it is. So thanks for the root beer. I sure
thank you. Cheers. Did you get a chance to drink any of it?
I drank all of it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You didn't drink yours?
I was savoring it throughout the process.
I gotta go take the treatment.
Okay.
It's getting to me. Okay,
Yeah.
I love you very much.
Love you, Daddy. This was great. Next Sunday, yeah?
Anytime you're ready. I'm ready
Love it.
Sunday if you want to.
Sounds great.
Love you very much.
See you. Bye.